Our speaker today, or commencement, exemplifies a core tenet of the St. Mary's College mission, which we just heard quite a bit about: service. Secretary Leon Panetta's 50-year career in public service reflects a lifetime commitment to the highest ideals of this nation. He is a decorated military veteran, an attorney, a civil rights advocate, a budget expert, and has served as a respected legislator and presidential advisor. A native of Monterey and son of Italian immigrants, Secretary Panetta received both his undergraduate degree in political science and his law degree from Santa Clara University. We can forgive him that. Secretary Panetta headed the U.S. Office for Civil Rights under, U.S. Office for Civil Rights under President Richard Nixon, and after running a successful Monterey law practice, was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives in 1976. He served his Central Coast District in Congress for 16 years and was a key participant in agriculture, healthcare, marine, and federal budget issues, and was known for reaching across the aisle. Secretary Panetta left Congress to serve as director of the Office of Management and Budget for President Bill Clinton, and was instrumental in developing policies that led to a balanced federal budget and eventual budget surpluses. He was subsequently appointed as the President's Chief of Staff. Secretary Panetta also served as director of the CIA and ran the operation responsible for bringing Osama bin Laden to justice. As Defense Secretary, he led strategic efforts to end 2 wars. Secretary Panetta is the chair of the Panetta Institute for Public Policy, based in California State University, Monterey Bay, which he and his wife Sylvia established in 1997. The Panetta Institute is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit center that promotes public service and offers academic and professional programs in government, politics, and public policy. Secretary Panetta returned to the Institute in February of 2013 after serving as the nation's 23rd Secretary of Defense. We are inspired by this tireless public service and remarkable achievements of our distinguished guest. It is my honor to introduce to you our commencement speaker, Secretary Leon Panetta. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to share in this great day with all of you. President Donahue, Brothers Gallagher and Anderson. I want to acknowledge Brother Dom, my little Calabrese friend, who drove me over here as well. I'm honored to be here. Honored to join in congratulating Class of 2014. You made it, guys. You made it. And I also want to congratulate the parents, your friends, your family, faculty, staff, all of whom are saying, thank God you made it. I'm also honored to be here at this beautiful campus. As a Californian, as the son of immigrants, as a product of Catholic education. I was born and raised in Monterey, California. I was the son, as mentioned, of Italian immigrants. My father, it's truly the American story. My father was the 13th in his family. And he had several brothers who came over to this country before he did. One brother, his oldest brother, settled in Sheridan, Wyoming, and another brother settled here in California. When my parents came over, the tradition is that you visit your older brother first. And so they went up to Wyoming and spent one winter in Sheridan. And my father said to my mother, it's time to visit my other brother in California, which they did. They made their way to Monterey. My dad opened a restaurant in downtown Monterey during the war years. My earliest recollections were standing on a chair in the back of that restaurant washing glasses. My parents believed that child labor was a requirement in my family. And then he sold that restaurant and bought land in Carmel Valley, and using a model from this area, Walnut Creek, planted walnuts. And again, I worked in the field with my father, and as those trees grew larger, my dad would go around with a pole and hook and shake each of the branches, and my brother and I used to be underneath the trees collecting the walnuts. When I got elected to Congress, my Italian father said, you know, you've been well trained to go to Washington because you've been dodging nuts all your life. It's true. My parents also believed that it was important to get a good education. And for that reason, my brother and I both went to Santa Clara University. Different time. It was an all-men's school, just like St. Mary's. And yes, we had a great rivalry. I guess you still do, although Gonzaga's probably more of a rival these days. We had, as some of you may remember, the little big game. Used to play for the victory bell that we used to go back and forth, and every once in a while that bell would disappear. And Santa Clara was usually responsible for that. But we used to play hard. We'd come up, play very hard, and then we'd all go into the Redwood Grove and enjoy ourselves with a keg of beer. I think I still have some friends that are wandering out there. Because we were an all-men's school, we used to reach out to the Catholic women's schools every time we wanted to have a mixer or an open house, and so we would invite all of those schools to our mixer. And as a matter of fact, it's the way I met my wife, who was going to Dominican College at the time. Now, most of you, I don't know if you know what the hell a mixer is anymore. You know, you're into Twitter and Facebook and internet stuff. I got to tell you, a mixer is a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun. And as a matter of fact, it works because my wife and I have been married for 52 years. So something's right. Now, whether from Santa Clara or St. Mary's, whether it's the Jesuits or the Christian Brothers, the fact is, bottom line is that you've been provided with a very good education. It's given you the knowledge that you need in order to further your career. It's given you a critical way of thinking. And I'm a believer that education, main purpose of education, is to give you a way of thinking. And most of all, it's also taught you service to community, service to the common good and those in need. And it's given you a sense, a foundation in knowing the difference between right and wrong, a conscience. All of that has been given to you so that you can have a shot at the American dream. But there's also one other ingredient that is important to make that happen. An ingredient that for many of you was passed on to you by your parents. Some of you found it in sports, some of you found it in the classroom. It is that will to fight. That will to fight for what you believe in. And it's the will to fight that all of us pay tribute to on this Memorial Day weekend. I used to ask my parents, why did they travel all of that distance? Poor area in Italy, but they had the comfort of family. Why would you travel all of that distance to come to a strange land? And my father used to say to me, the reason was because your mother and I believed that we could give our children a better life in this country. And that is the American dream. It's the dream that we want for our sons, and hopefully the dream that you will want for your children as well. But a dream, ladies and gentlemen, is just a dream. Unless you're willing to work for it, unless you're willing to sacrifice, to take risks, and yes, to fight. I had a Jesuit priest, Santa Clara, who taught me, he said, Leon, life is a struggle. It is a struggle. And you have to fight in order to survive that struggle. Typical Jesuit. And he backed it up with the story that I often tell. He said the story of the rabbi and the priest who decided they would get to know each other a little better. So one evening they went to a boxing match, thinking that if they went to events together, they would talk to each other and understand each other's religion. And just before the bell rang, one of the boxers made the sign of the cross. And the rabbi nudged the priest, and he said, "What does that mean?" The priest said, "It doesn't mean a damn thing if he can't fight." Now, ladies and gentlemen and graduates, we bless ourselves with the hope that everything's going to be fine in this country. But very frankly, it doesn't mean a damn thing unless you're willing to fight for it. Those are the values that made this the greatest country on earth. And whether the leadership of our country today embraces those values will in many ways determine whether we remain the greatest country on earth. Let me share with you the class of 2014, that after 50 years of public service, I've seen the ups and downs in our democracy. And frankly, I'm worried about the state of our democracy today, and I think many of you are as well. Panetta Institute took a poll of college students in which a large majority of students were concerned about the direction of our country, were dissatisfied with political leadership, were concerned about their lives. And it's understandable. Washington today is paralyzed by political gridlock and division. And there is also a growing sense of pulling back from the world, of looking inward, of not wanting to take the risks that are associated with world leadership. And so at a point here in 2014, your class, I think our country could very well take one of two paths. One is we could have an America in Renaissance. I truly believe that. We could be on the cusp of a strong economic recovery. Our fundamentals are good. We've got tremendous creativity and innovation in this country. We could build and strengthen an educated and skilled workforce, build a middle class, advance opportunity for all, achieve energy independence in ways that can protect our planet from climate change, expand trade, discipline our budget, provide a leaner and more agile defense, and sustain American leadership in a troubled world. We could have that kind of America. Or we could be an America in decline, in constant crisis after crisis, politically dysfunctional, unable to govern, to take the steps necessary to protect our most basic freedoms, our economy, our national security. What path we take will largely be determined by how we govern ourselves or how we fail to govern ourselves, and whether we have the courage to lead. I often tell the students at the Panetta Institute that in a democracy we govern either by leadership or by crisis. If leadership is there and willing to take the risks associated with leadership, we can avoid crisis. But if leadership is not there, make no mistake about it, we will govern by crisis. You can govern that way, but there's a price to be paid. And the price is that you lose the trust of the American people in our system of governing. In a democracy, frankly, trust is everything. I believe in American leadership. I know it can work. Throughout history, we have faced all kinds of crises. We've faced recessions and depressions and world wars. We've faced natural disasters. And we've always risen to the occasion. Why? Because frankly, the fundamental strength of America does not lie in Washington. It lies in the spirit and strength and resilience and common sense and grit of the American people. It was true for my parents. It was true for our forefathers and the pioneers and other immigrants who have come to this country. As Secretary of Defense, I saw those values in the men and women that served this nation in uniform, that were willing to put their lives on the line in order to fight and die for America. And we recognize that sacrifice as we celebrate Memorial Day. I saw those values in our troops. I saw those values in the SEALs and the intelligence officials that conducted the operation to go after bin Laden. Let me tell you a little bit about that operation that you didn't see in the movie. When I became director of the CIA, the trail to bin Laden was stone cold. Every lead had led nowhere. We pulled together a task force to come together and try everything we could to see if we could locate where he was. Finally, they put together bits and pieces of intelligence that led us to identifying the couriers that worked for bin Laden. We were able to find a name, and we were able to place a face with the name. And we located them in a town in Pakistan called Peshawar. Using surveillance, we were able to track them to a compound located in Abbottabad. That compound caught our attention. It was 3 times larger than any other compound in the area. It had 18-foot walls on one side, 12-foot walls on another side. There was an 8-foot wall on the 3rd floor. Barbed wire around it. People did not communicate. They didn't telephone in the compound. They traveled 90 miles in order to make a telephone call. So we knew that they were involved in very high security. We took every effort we could to see if we could identify who was there. We were able, by identifying the clothes on the clothesline, to identify how many family members actually lived there. And the number of family members matched the number in bin Laden's family. But we could never get an ID on bin Laden. There was somebody who used to go out in the middle of the day and walk around in circles in an open area, like a prisoner in a prison yard. Walk around 20 or 30 times and then go back in. And I told my people, I said, we have got to identify who that is. And they said, it's very hard to do, Director. We can't get, the walls are in the way, we can't get a good shot. I said, I've seen a movie where the CIA can do this, damn it. But they couldn't, so we never got 100% ID on bin Laden. And so it came to a point where we had to go to the National Security Council to decide whether we conduct the operation. And I can tell you that a majority there felt that the operation was too risky. When the President asked me what I thought, I said, Mr. President, I use an old formula that I've used in Congress, which was when you face a tough decision, pretend you're asking the average citizen, what would you do if you knew what I did? And I felt that if the average citizen knew that we had the best intelligence on the location of bin Laden that we've ever had since Tora Bora, that the average citizen would say you have to go. And we also had tremendous confidence in the SEALs to conduct that operation. The next day, the President gave the order and the SEAL teams departed. 2 helicopters, 150 miles into Pakistan at night, to a compound that was virtually in the middle of a military complex. When they got there, one of the helicopters stalled and went down. Fortunately, they were able to land it properly. The SEAL team continued the operation, didn't miss a beat. And they successfully completed that mission. And they sent a clear message to the world that nobody attacks the United States of America and gets away with it. That kind of courage is what made our nation great. And surely if there are men and women in uniform who are willing to fight and die for America, put their lives on the line, then our elected leaders ought to have a little bit of that courage in order to govern this country. To not just give up and wait for the next election, to give up because the politics in Washington happen to be tough. Governing is not a pretty please process. It's tough, and you have to fight if you want to win. You've got to work at it if you want a budget deal, to try to deal with the debt that faces this country, to do immigration reform, to pass a fair and just system of immigration reform for this country, to promote income equality so that everybody can enjoy the opportunity that this country offers, and to provide a sound energy policy that can keep our climate and our planet safe. The fact is that they largely have given up. USA Today had a headline that said that this Congress is the least productive Congress ever. Teddy Roosevelt once said, when you're faced with a tough decision, the best thing you can do is to make the right decision. The next best thing you can do is to make the wrong decision. The worst thing you can do is to do nothing. My message to you, graduates of 2014, your degree and your education is a license to action, not an excuse to sit back and do nothing. My father once told me when I graduated from Santa Clara, understand that your degree doesn't entitle you to a damn thing. You have to earn it. You have to earn it. And your seminar education made you think, and now you have to act. Changes in our democracy, I'm afraid, are not going to happen from the top down. It's going to happen from the bottom up, and you're it. You're it. Your education has broadened your knowledge, but it is not a proxy for the guts you need to be successful, to get the job done. There is an essential trait, and it's called sheer grit. To take on greater challenges, to not take the easy way out, to learn things and to solve problems. Our forefathers created a system of governing that is dependent on the power of the people. The power of the people. When I visited one of our bases in Afghanistan, there was a plaque on the wall that I will never forget. It had a verse from the Old Testament, Isaiah chapter 6, verse 8. And then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And then I said, here I am, Lord, send me. Send me. In Hebrew it is hineni, send me. This is the sound of the trumpet that must summon all of us to action, that must summon us to the fight to protect our democracy. It's the call to duty that goes to the heart and soul of what our democracy is all about. It took 250 years for democracy to disintegrate in ancient Athens, and it disintegrated because it was not nurtured. Whether you are in uniform or not, we all have a responsibility to nurture our democracy, to make sure that we have an America in Renaissance, to make sure that we achieve that American dream of giving our children that better life, and to make sure that we always strengthen a government of, by, and for people. And it doesn't mean a damn thing unless you're willing to fight for it. Congratulations, God bless you, and God bless our country.